I am Mohammed, your host today, and we have the pleasure of speaking with Mike Goldberg, a content marketing expert with over 2 decades of experience in storytelling, brand building, and content strategy. Mike has led teams at companies like Freshworks, Vonage, and DNB, and is now taking on a new challenge as the content lead at Tatari. Known for his ability to tell compelling stories, Mike has worked closely with C-level executives and cross-functional teams to craft global marketing campaigns that delivers impactful results. We will dive into his content philosophy, what made him take on this exciting role at Tatari, and how he envisions the future of content marketing. Mike, first of all, welcome again for this brand new episode of Content Marketing Leaders, and it's our pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And Mike, I know I'm not sure how diligent and how good the introduction was, and I know for a fact a lot of people will be listening to this content marketing interview series. For someone who's hearing you for the first time, if you could please introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, and how did content marketing happen to you, that'd be a great start.
Sure. Well, you did a very good job, so thank you. To add a little more context to that. So, yep, I've been in the marketing space for 20 plus years. When I hear it, I'm kind of dumbfounds me how old I might be, but I won't get into that. I studied journalism throughout college, expecting to be the next great writer, novelist, journalist. I quickly realized that it was going to be harder to get those jobs out of school than I thought. So somehow I landed into marketing very early on in my career, not having ever taken any real marketing courses, not knowing anything about it. But the first person who is still a mentor to me today, who hired me, told me, "Don't worry about marketing. I'll teach you everything you need to know about marketing. But what I can't teach is how to be a good writer." And
Right.
that really was foundational throughout my career as I moved up from more of a marketing generalist role into more content specific roles down the line. It was that ability to tell stories and be a really good writer, because at the end of the day, that's what marketing is really all about. So I had the opportunity to work for a lot of different companies, lead content, work with a lot of great writers and editors. And, I continue to do that today, and it's what I love.
Awesome. This is great start, right? And just to give you the format in terms of how we're trying to do this interview here, the first segment is mostly we'll go deeper into your journey itself, and then we'll also try and take some kind of information from you in terms of what's the change in the content side have been so far ever since you started off to what it is right now. And the second format is mostly me asking you some rapid fire questions and just to see how you're going to answer those, and then how fun it's going to be there, right? So now my first question is mostly towards your journey itself here, Mike, right? So I know you've had such an impressive journey evolving from a writer to a leader in content marketing space, more specifically in large enterprises. What are some of key principles that you have carried out throughout your career when it comes to crafting powerful content that resonates with your audiences?
Yeah, I think what really has helped me is having that journalistic mindset. I've gone into content marketing with that journalistic hat always on. So while I understand everything that we're doing from a content perspective for whatever company I've worked with was about helping drive leads or awareness, sales, and ultimately revenue, to me, it was always about telling stories that mattered to our end users. So it wasn't about selling. Let salespeople do the selling.
Yeah.
I like to say, tell, don't sell, because I want to write content that's going to help somebody do their job better. So for me, it's always asking the right questions. What pain points does our audience have? What challenges do they have? How can our product or solution, or wherever I was, how can it help? But reframe it in a way that someone who's reading it doesn't feel like they're being pitched. That's really foundational to everything I do from a content perspective.
No, interesting. I think a quick follow up, and you mentioned it's the power of storytelling and content is so key as such, right? Now, you've always been a believer in telling and not selling, which is what you mentioned earlier as well. Now, how do you approach storytelling in B2B setting, especially when dealing with complex products and services? And what strategies have you found most effective in turning these prospects into customers?
Yeah, so it goes back to what I was saying when I look and understand what the problem our audience has.
Right.
Obviously, a specific product or solution is being pitched because it can help somebody do their job better. But for me, I don't want to tell about the product itself. I don't want to be in all in on the bells and whistles that the product marketing teams that I work with are very aggressive about pitching and sharing. But I want to know what the outcomes of that product will be. So if
Mhm.
there's a product with a new AI feature, I don't want to talk about what the AI is doing. I want to talk about what it's going to help somebody do. So for me, that's
Right.
really important in that narrative, and I build that story out that way. I also like to start with, again, a problem, a solution a problem or challenge that they have, and address that in a story. And ideally, that's like the front door. You want someone to come in and say, "Oh, I read something. This helps me do my job better." They leave. They don't think about your company right away. But then you can think about nurturing them over time, following up with related content. Say, "You've read this blog. You've read this white paper. Here, learn a little bit more about how we're working with customers just like you that can do it." That's when
Mhm.
you're building in more of that mid to bottom funnel content, case studies, testimonials, and then getting into like the product demos and product messaging. But I really feel like you need to start at the top funnel, not hit them with any product related content first.
Interesting. And do you also divide those audience into different cohorts? Is that also is a big factor in terms of how you drive them to different funnels at different point? Is that also is a key aspect there?
Yeah, it varies based on the teams I've worked with. Every
Right.
demand gen marketing team has a lot of different rules and the way to go to market. But basically, I look at it as there's aware and there's non-aware. There's people that have
Mhm.
never heard of your company. I don't think they really care to learn about your company, but they want to learn about a common problem or solution that the company can address. And then there's the companies, there's the customers or prospects that they know what you do, but they're not
Yeah.
ready to buy yet. But then you
Right.
can be a little more subtle about bringing in that product messaging. So to me, it's understanding, right, who those audiences are and writing to where they are in the funnel.
Right. And you also mentioned having different teams coming together and create that magic, especially from a content perspective, right? So now I see that you have led teams across different industries from tech to finance, right? What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced while adapting content strategies to different sectors, and how did you overcome them?
I think for me, the biggest challenge I had, especially in different industries, having been in the financial industry, been in IT, is learning the terminology, really understanding
Right.
the way those prospects, those audiences think, what what the common terminology is, understanding who they are and how they engage with content. I've worked at companies where we were targeting other marketers, so that world is a lot more comforting to me because I know it
Yeah.
well. So other areas, it's just about a lot of learning. I find myself really forming close internal relationships with other subject matter experts to really talk to them, to really learn the lay of the land. That's always been important as well. So I can really try and get my head into what our prospects are and what they're thinking and what they need, and really what type of content would be most helpful for them.
Hmm. Interesting. And then we all know there's ups and downs, mostly in any sector, any function that you operate in, right? So now coming back to one important question, right? So you must have ran let's say multiple campaigns throughout your career, right? Is there a specific project or campaign that stands out more like a game changer for you, and what made you so successful?
Yeah, there's a couple I always point back to. One is in my time at Dun and Bradstreet, they at the time they were trying to break into a brand new audience for data and analytics for marketers, and the idea of programmatic advertising was really something important. It's like D&B sits on mounds and mounds of information,
Yeah.
so being able to use that for targeting for our customers was very important. and programmatic advertising was still a kind of new tactic at the time, and we wanted to reach audiences about our programmatic solution. At the time I was searching, there was a lot on programmatic for big brands and agencies who were doing the B2C programmatic targeting, but there was
Yep.
nothing about B2B. And I said, all right,
Mhm.
this is something that we can definitely own. So I said, hey, let's come up with a research study to one really understand what people know about B2B programmatic advertising, and understand what they don't at the same time, but also, where are their inputs in that, how much will they be spending, what's important to them. So I created a really quick, down and dirty 7-10 question survey, ran it myself. I put some incentives around it, like $10 Amazon gift card, and I was fulfilling that myself just to get some insights and input. And we wound up getting a really good story together, based on the questions that I wrote, knowing the answers I was going to get. So I will be
Yeah.
the first to say maybe I'm not your traditional researcher. Definitely had a marketing lens to this, but I was like, oh, this is great. We're getting great data points. We've got a story here. I put together the research report. And because I mentioned no one was talking about this, it got a lot of pickup through uh, trade publications, like editorial trades that said, "Hey, we want to write about this." They created their own charts. They interviewed our sales experts about what the meaning of the results were. We packaged this up in a research study, got a lot of downloads, and then back to my point about nurturing people who come through the
Mhm.
door, we were able to say, all right, based on all of the insights that we're getting from this research, we know some topics that will make sense that we want to write about. So we created a white paper on how to get started about B2B programmatic. We created a lot of technical know-how and demos and walkthroughs. So this
Yeah.
one piece of research created a steady stream of research content for the next 6 to 12 months. Long story short is this became an annual study that we did. It went
Nice.
on. I think we partnered with a big trade publication to do this on a massive scale, and I believe they were doing it like 10, 11 years down the road. So that was uh, a huge big win for me.
Awesome. And then today we talk about programmatic SEO, even in Pepper, right? And lot of clients today come to us and say, "Hey, we want to really see increase our SEO ranking, and I want to also make sure that we also are investing in programmatic SEO." And today AI is becoming so common to create those programmatic pages, right? So was that the same case for you in DNB when you're doing the programmatic piece, or is it mostly you did everything manually?
Yeah, back in D&B, AI was still something only data engineers touched and
Correct.
worked on. It did not hit the
True.
marketing people. We were talking more about like the way advertising was bought and sold programmatically, and then our
Right.
data would help influence how they bid on that media. But
Mhm.
AI was something that was still only I was watching the Terminator. That was what I knew about AI at the time.
Got it. And now AI is a buzzword, right? So everyone now is investing in AI. People do not know how to use it sometimes, or people might just see, hey, this is too dangerous for us to even look at it. And when initially AI came in, it was mostly displacing content writers. That's how it started off. And eventually, we being in San Francisco, everyone questioned our existence as a company, saying, hey, you guys create content. Now AI has come in. How would you really sustain yourself? But what's your take on AI here? Mike. It's transforming the content landscape for sure, but what opportunities and challenges do you think marketers should be mindful of when incorporating AI into their strategies?
If I can be frank, I feel like AI is garbage for writing. It's just, it doesn't give you anything new. It just
True.
puts together what's out there, and I think it's a great tool for outlining, for researching. It's saving a lot of time for writers who might be looking for things. Instead of having to look everywhere, you can go to AI and get it all there for you. But
Yeah.
to use it as a replacement for a writer is a very dangerous idea. And I feel like early on in the past couple of years, maybe some smaller companies thought, hey, we don't need to hire writers, or we don't need to work with freelancers. We can use AI to
True.
push. push out a bunch of writing, and at the time they probably thought, "Oh, wait, this is great," but the quality is awful.
Mhm.
Again, there's no original ideas to it, and I think Google quickly has realized like
Yeah,
we're gonna you know penalize you for writing AI generated content. So now I feel like those companies that did that, like, oh, we need to go back and understand that it really needs that human interaction for writing. So, again, I
sure.
think it's a good tool, but when I was at Freshworks, I would always tell my team, don't write in AI.
Yeah,
Don't produce anything that you don't have your hands in.
absolutely. I think it's like I concur with the thought because generally, when like I said, when we were there in the US, when OpenAI released that first version of AI writing, and then a lot of people were jobless. Eventually, the company that we were talking to, they said, "Hey, we are happy with AI. We don't need any resources as such."
Mhm.
Eventually, they went back hiring the same people, saying, "When you come and join us, because I feel this is a bubble that burst too soon for us in general, right?" So, totally concur with the thought. And now you've managed content teams of various sizes throughout your career, right? Mentoring writers, designers, and a few others. How do you cultivate a creative and productive environment for your teams? What qualities do you think are the most important for content leaders to develop in the next generation of marketers?
Well, I think collaboration is key. I never wanted to be the person that felt like, oh, I was dictating what should be done. I never wanted to act like I was the smartest person in the room, even though I was the
Right.
leader of the team. I always said, hey, I come to the table as like, I want to learn from everyone. And a good writer should be really inquisitive. You should always want to learn, ask good questions. So for me, it was
Yeah.
like good brainstorming. Everyone come to the table with ideas and everyone read. I think what makes a great content writer is being a great reader, just immersing
Mhm.
yourself in what's happening in the industry we're in, reading what other companies are doing, reading what clients are doing. I think that really brings up a lot of opportunity for creation of new ideas and not just being told, a lot of the content that my team has to create is in response to marketing plans and all right, we need content for this campaign, but for us it's about all right, well, what's the real content that we need to use that makes sense, what kind of topics, thematic elements should we have in that, and that's me working closely with the team as a like a journalistic newsroom is what I'd say.
Yeah. Got it. Interesting. And then you moved to Tatari right now. I think you've taken that role very recently, right? Which is a big shift from what you were doing previously, right? So what motivated you to take this move, and what excites you about the journey with Tatari?
Yeah, I mean, I think foundationally it's not that different in terms of I'm doing content and I want to tell exciting stories. And
Sure.
for me, it's going back to where I was very early on in my career in this ad tech world.
Mhm.
Um, so Tatari itself plays in the TV advertising space. They're a technology company that's really helping advertisers use TV, linear, streaming to target their audiences. And for me, I know that world because I watch TV probably too much. I love TV. So I feel like really much more comfortable. Not that I wasn't in other areas, but at Freshworks is an IT tool for IT
Yeah.
people. I'm not an IT person. I don't use that tool. I can learn about them. I can write about them. But Satari, talking to advertisers using TV, well, I know that very well. So, it's a little bit more comforting. And I feel like there's a lot of exciting opportunities as people are engaging with new TV, whether it's streaming or not. So, there's a whole world ahead of me for storytelling here.
Awesome. No, I think all the best for that new role, and see, I think we would certainly keep a track in terms of how this is going for you. Um, One last question, especially looking at the future of content marketing itself in general, right? What trends do you think will shape content marketing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the biggest difference is format. I think
Mm.
at first, especially early on in my career in content, it was like, oh, we need content, we need a writer. You need to write a blog, you need to write a 15,000 word ebook. But the formats are changing. I think video is extremely important for telling stories. Short form video for social media. It's just the way
Yep.
people are engaging with content today. So I feel like it's almost moving away from being a writer to a producer.
Hmm.
I think a good content marketer shouldn't have to be tasked with creating a video. There's
Right.
obviously technical learnings there, and you work with videographers and other tools to do that. But piecing that story together is still going to be important. Storytelling is still important, but the format will change.
Interesting. And then you also manage global teams, right? Global content campaigns, and then localizing content also is a key aspect, considering that you target different geographies, right? How do you maintain consistency, especially brand consistency, from a messaging perspective when you go so global, from a content perspective?
Yeah, that's always been a challenge. I think there's three things to keep in mind when you're talking about global content. Is is there translation needed? Do we have content that's going to speak to everyone the same way? And we just want to make sure that each market and each region can read it in their preferred language. That's when it starts at the top, and we just work with, you know, localization companies that translate it. But then there is actual localization content where the actual
Yep.
content is changing based on the region. So if we're
Right.
putting together a big content marketing campaign that's aligned to a product, that product is not being used in one market of the region, then it no longer makes sense to use that for that market. So for me, it's understanding with the regional leads of different teams, what are the important things that you're doing? What kind of content can we take from the global content and fine tune it and adjust it so it speaks to one, what's important for the region from a product perspective, and second, what is different, what unique traits and characteristics does that content need to have that speaks to that market that might not resonate in other markets. I think that goes just in terms of the types of words we use. Some wording and some copy just doesn't make sense in some countries.
Right.
So it's important for me to work with those teams to find other options that might make sense, and visuals as well. I think a lot of people forget about the importance of visuals when they're talking content. I've had one experience where we used the pictures of a lot of smiling people, and person in the UK was like, "You can't use this content." And my first thought was, "Oh no, what do we have to rewrite?" And they're like, "No, these are not good pictures or images to use for our market." So that's something I'm always learning and have to keep abreast of. Like each region has their own different characteristics.
Got it. Interesting. And one last question. Let's say today, given a chance that you get into a company which has no content marketing team as such, and given you an authority to really run that entire function, how would you look at creating that team, and what are the key pieces that you want to put together to make sure you have a rock star team helping you?
Yeah, I think I like to understand the market they're in. What are their goals? What's a sales cycle look like? What kind
Right.
of traction do they have in the market? So that really helps me understand, like, do they need a lot of top funnel thought leadership content developed to generate awareness? Um, if not, do they need a lot of help with case studies? Do they have a lot of prospects already and they just can't push them over the fence? So maybe they need more product related content. So understanding like what type of content is most important, I think that
Yep.
helps me understand when I'm building a team. There's a lot of strengths that different content writers bring to the table. There's your long form content writers, there's blog writers who are more sit on that journalistic side. For a lot of demand gen content where you're doing a lot of paid media, it's more of a copywriting strength that you want to
Okay.
have. So I really
Yep.
want to understand like what the core goals are. That helps me understand the team, and then think through again formats. If we can do a lot more video, should I have a designer and a videographer on the team? If it's not there, can you work with a freelancer? Sometimes it's harder to work with a freelancer than just saying let's hire somebody in house, and sometimes it's
Yep.
easier. Again, it's depending on the kind of quantity of content that's needed and the demands of the team and the goals.
Awesome. This is great. Thanks so much for sharing that information. I'm now getting into the rapid fire questions for you, Mike, right? So I hope we surprise you with some questions. It's going to be not so easy to answer. Right. So my first question is Iron Maiden or Kill Switch Engage, band to listen to prepare for a big project deadline.
Iron Maiden, because they are the original heavy metal storytellers, and
Yeah.
some 12-minute songs can help while I'm thinking through project ideas.
Awesome. As a lifelong Mets fan, have you ever used your sports loyalty as inspiration for resilience in content campaigns?
Yes. So one of the things I always try to do is bring in like everyday things that I love and that I'm passionate about into storytelling. The Mets, they usually are big failures, so I lean on them because I can go through anything being a Mets fan. But bringing the idea of baseball and using that as a metaphor in a lot of content
Yeah.
is something I've always done.
Brooklyn or New Jersey? Which has a better food scene?
Brooklyn, for sure.
What's more satisfying, nailing a killer piece of content or seeing New York Jets win a game?
I'd say nailing the content because that's more realistic.
And would you rather attend a heavy metal concert or a Mets game if you could only pick one?
No, a concert all day.
Seinfeld, The Simpsons, The Office, curb your enthusiasm. What's your best cure for a stressful workday?
The Office.
And if you are stuck on a desert island with only one album, what's your pick?
I'd say it's an album by a band called Ghost.
Favorite Mets or Jets memory despite the heartbreaks?
Well, I'd say the Mets made the playoffs this year, and
Yes.
I watched it
Yeah.
with my son for the first time. He got into it, so sharing that with somebody else is the best memory.
Nice. If you could give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I've been through so many ups and downs. I would say that never get down. There's always better days ahead.
Awesome, that's a great advice for sure. And which character from The Office would make the best content marketer?
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott. Awesome. Now that brings us to end to that rapid fire question. One last closing question here, looking at the future. As someone with over 2 decades in content marketing, what excites you about the future of content, especially with the rise of new technologies and evolving customer expectations?
Yeah, I think it's that with all the trends and changes, foundationally, the goal of content is not changing. It's
Correct.
storytelling. And as everything changes in marketing and tech, I think the foundation of telling a story is not changing. So that's what excites me. That with so much change, there's not going to be much change.
Absolutely. So I think sticking to basics is what you're saying. That's exactly what will take you along, right? So this is perfect. I think, Mike, like I said, it was fun having you on this podcast series. I think some of the answers that you've given is so overwhelming for us because I've done a lot of interviews and some of the answers were really surprising to me to see the way you think and the way you envisage your role itself in general. But yeah, like I said, this has been hell of an experience for us to really interview you and have you on the show.
Yeah, I love blabbing about content, so thanks.
Thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Great, thank you.